it was a much improved performance. I have to say, I thought the interview before the game, a day or two before the game, with Crosby, actually filled me with a bit of hope with the way that he kind of approached the situation that he's in. And I was very underwhelmed with him as being put in charge for a game. I'll be completely honest with you about that. I'm thinking, is he the solution? I know it's only one game, particularly at the moment, and he's been part of the problem. He's been here for 2 months, and we haven't had any wins. And there was a bit of a fear that if they kind of scrape a draw or a decent performance, he'll end up with the job for the end of the season. Well, on the basis of that, I'd be quite happy for him to get it, to be quite honest. I thought the players, and there is always a slight question mark about the same players suddenly remembering how to play football when they're playing for a different manager. But they were much improved today. I loved seeing Leo Connell with the captain's armband. He should be the captain of that football team. And the only disappointment was seeing him hand it over to Tom Davis when he came on the bench, because I would have made that a permanent swap. But much improved. Regan Hendry, I thought, was absolutely superb today. The passion that we seem to have been lacking, flying into a couple of challenges which you don't tend to see players who are coming back after a lengthy layoff to get stuck into. We've got 12 cup finals now after that game, and on the face of it, we still haven't had a win in 11 games, and I am bored to death of walking out of that game with a point, because we seem to draw so many games at home.
That's 9 now, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, an awful lot of points. But to quote Keith Hill, that you would definitely call that a positive point, because it was a much improved performance. The first 20 minutes was incredible. The change in the players. Big game on Tuesday now. To can they follow that up? That is the really important thing now. Can they follow that up? But fair play to the lads. They could not have been enjoying their football for the last few weeks. I was on here raging with a vein bubbling in my temple, liking to be a really positive person and contributor to this program, but it just got to the point where enough was enough, and it is criminal that we've got to this point. Really, it is poor management of the club that we've got to this stage. But we are where we are, and I have as much encouragement from that performance as I could possibly have dreamt of getting. It was an enjoyable afternoon. 2 children came with me, and neither of them complained and asked to leave before the final whistle. A positive point.
There's so much to go through, so much to unpick, and the first thing to say is it's an odd situation going to a Tranmere game, and obviously I want them to win, always want them to win, but there's that concern in the back of your head going, as you've already kind of touched upon it, if they scrape a 1-0 win, does that mean Palios has the leeway to give him the role to the end of the season? And in my mind, I still don't think that's the right thing to do. I still think you need a bit of fresh impetus and a bit of fresh blood to come into the club and to have a look at those players and do something differently. So I obviously wanted them to win, but the concern was that might lead to something a bit more in terms of long term with the manager. And we will see whether that's the case, because I was concerned that you've basically got the same guy who came in just before Christmas to try and improve Tranmere's form. And since he came in as the assistant to the manager, the form hasn't actually improved. In fact, it's nosedived. There's not been keeping clean sheets enough. They've not been scoring enough goals still. But what we saw on the pitch today was completely different to anything Nigel Adkins served up. And it leaves me questioning, why did he bring the guy in the first place if he, from what we've seen, the evidence in terms of matches, didn't listen to him? He played a fascinating formation today. He played 4-4-1-1 with Regan Hendry playing as the second striker. Completely bizarre. Some people might have seen it as 4-3-3 with Hawkes and Patrick out wide, but from what I saw, Hendry was playing as a number 10, sitting just off Christian Dennis, which is something I'd have never dreamt up, but it worked. I've people who know this, who've listened to this podcast for a long time, will know I've never been Regan Hendry's number 1 fan. But that was probably the best I've seen him play in a Tranmere shirt. He was popping balls first touch, left, right, and centre to all the runners that were making their way around him, which is something, again, we haven't seen. We haven't seen that movement and that wanting to get forward, the desire to try and get into the opposition penalty area. So it really worked from that sense. And you look at the starting lineup, Tom Davis, I assume he was dropped. I haven't heard otherwise. Wasn't part of the starting 11. Connor Jennings was dropped to the start, dropped to the bench. So we've seen a manager there who clearly wasn't afraid to make big decisions and try and shake things up to get away from the insipidness that we've been viewing for the last few weeks.
You did get the impression from Regan Hendry, didn't you, that he's been sat there tearing his bloody hair out watching us for the last few weeks and was absolutely dying to get on there and inject a bit of the fire into it that he did when he came on. I have a slightly different view to you with regards to Crosby. The stakes are unprecedentedly, if that's not a word, it is now, high. We have, a huge task on our hands. And whilst my initial reaction was, well, why would you give it to somebody who has been, at the club for 2 months and made next to no difference? Well, actually, giving him the job in his own right now, you have the advantage of somebody who has had a back seat and 2 months to observe and know the players. Now, I'm all for fresh impetus coming in and a fresh pair of eyes. We don't have time. We don't have time for any mistakes. We don't have time for any trial and error. And actually, maybe... And I think Mark's in quite a good position with the takeover that he doesn't have to make any decisions about a permanent move and, potentially gives him another couple. And then if he needs to strike and bring somebody in for the next 10 games,